Hello, I will give you a status update of the saw. I will show you what I have already done with the machine, what I have tried to calibrate, and some things that are still ongoing. The machine still isn't fully ready, as I haven't had time to play around with it very much, but still let's have a status update, otherwise I will never send you those videos, I believe. Okay, last time the machine wasn't electrically connected yet, and I haven't tried it out in real life, in real situation, cutting the wood. Now it's already connected. I have tried to make some drawers, some cabinets, as you can see. So it's already a small experience with the machine. But last time I showed you that I need to readjust the cast iron table because of this plate cover was running into contact with this slot here. At the moment it is already adjusted. It moves as it should be. There is no collisions anymore, and therefore this corner of the cast iron table is my 0 coordinate. The cast iron table itself is standing on top of 4 of those, or these types of bolts, 2 on each end, and so I had to raise it, and I had to make sure that it would stay on the same plane relative to itself. For that job, it is not possible to only use some standard construction lever, as it is too inaccurate and would probably show that it's leveled even if there would be noticeable twist in the cast iron table. So for that reason I purchased myself a engineer's level, and this is a little bit too accurate. It's a little bit overkill, but still I don't try to use it so perfectly that it is 100% accurate to each coordinates. It simply gives me too much information, and I decide on my gut feeling what is more than enough for that. Those types of engineers levels are usually used for CNC machines, but I do understand that this is not a CNC machine, and it doesn't have to be that accurate. But as the cast iron table is very important for calibrating all the other things, sled, fences, etc. So this base plate material, base coordinate needs to be as good as possible, because it affects everything else relative to it. So I paid a lot of time, energy and effort to calibrate it in the right coordinate. At the moment, for my surprise, it has already changed a little bit from the time that I last reset it. It was reasonably level before, but now you can see that I have put under one corner of the engineer's level a feeler gauge with 0.08 millimeters. So this is at the moment approximately the difference that the cast iron is bent a little bit or under the angle. I don't know why this has happened. Maybe it's something to do with the temperature. Maybe it's something to do with the fact that I have actually stood on the table to move some things around in my workshop, but the fact is that it is a little bit off. Anyway, I need to redo some calibrations for the sled and other things, so I haven't taken the time to do those things all over. But anyways, okay, although I already started to explain a little bit in detail how I calibrated the cast iron table, this will be probably quite a lengthy video. I will go through each sub-assembly of the machine that I have already calibrated or have noticed some problems or have some opinions. I will try to put some timestamps on the video so you can jump around to the location which is more of your interest. A couple of months ago I already did some short videos that I haven't put up, and many of those problems are already removed. I will put those extra videos up separately, so some of the information is maybe therefore told twice or is a little bit more in detail in those separate videos, but I try to do it in a way that it makes sense somehow. Okay, one correction that I want to tell you, what I told wrong last time is that when I showed you the gap difference between the cast iron table and the sled mechanism, I showed you that in here versus in here the gap was about 1 to 1.5 millimeters larger than in the beginning, and I argumented that or not argumented, but what I made wrong was that I thought that this edge of the cast iron table is good enough for the measurement, but actually this is not a machined surface, so it isn't that perfect, and it doesn't need to be, but definitely it influenced somewhat my measurement. So the method of checking the relative position between cast iron table and sled mechanism definitely wasn't a correct one, but later on when I had a better method to check it, I saw that the fault or the difference was still about the same. So although the method wasn't very good, the point still remains that the cast iron table and the sled mechanism were basically 1.5 millimeters away from this end compared to that one. Okay, but let's then speak a little bit about the cast iron table adjustment in more detail. Although I told you last time that the cast iron table itself seemed to be quite flat, I actually didn't pay attention to some of the things. I did only had taken some linear measurements with a straight edge, and I hadn't at that time analyzed if it was under the angle from one end to the other or something like that. So later on, when for example I took the straight edge and put it randomly in diagonal position, it was quite easy to wobble around with this cast iron table on top of this cast iron table. So I did many of those measurements after I had already readjusted some of those bolts in the corners. So I'm not sure how much it was better or worse before I did any adjustments. But what I know now, at least, is that it's not possible to get it too flat because, as you can see, there are those milling marks in YouTube. In other videos, you can see how SCM manufactures those cast iron tables. I understand that the material, the metal itself, is changing over time a little bit. They don't start milling it right out from the oven, but it cures for a couple of weeks, month, or I don't know how much period. As I can understand, the longer the better, but in manufacturing process you have to decide what is the optimal moment or point where you can't keep it in stock anymore and need to mill the surface. So I believe that in one sense it has changed a little bit because of the metal itself playing, but even more I understand what makes it a little bit uneven today after the milling is that during the milling process they probably haven't assembled any motor in here, and the motor assembly is quite heavy, which means that if we are having 4 point contacts for the whole table, then logically the motor itself is so heavy that it sags the table a little bit. So this makes it a bit difficult to decide which exact coordinates one should use for adjusting the table, because it is naturally a little bit bent already. So I tried to simply take some coordinates in the middle of the end and in the middle of this end, and try to stick those coordinates during the calibration process. It's quite difficult and annoying actually to regulate those bolts because even very small adjustments will create a massive difference in the actual measurements. As I'm already in this filming location, I want to show you one thing. This back corner there was my 0 coordinate. This coordinate also gave me the height of the whole cast iron tabletop. So when I reached to this end, I had to also lift those 2 contacts on the same height. As you can see, there isn't too much thread left on the bolt here, so there isn't much room to go higher anymore, even if I wanted to. But that already has almost created me this problem, that this regulating knob in here and this threaded rod is almost in contact with the saw base frame itself. So I'm quite lucky that I had this extra millimeter extra space there, so it's not into contact actually, and this is the natural position where this tabletop needs to be relative to this base frame. Actually, even before I started adjusting the cast iron table, I fixed the base frame to the floor, so it doesn't move around when I knock it, or if it's vibrating, and as the floor itself isn't perfectly even as well, I try to find some straight contacts which probably are reasonably in level, or should be in level, and I use the regular construction level to put some spacers under the feet, so the frame itself would be without any reasonable twists before I started adjusting this tabletop at all. So everything started with roughly leveling the machine frame, and then I started with the cast iron table calibration.